Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Hours in My Library. And today is, I find it an interesting book. There's nothing sort of super special about the binding or anything like that. I've just been sort of moving stuff around, and I got this, and I remember getting this and thought it was quite interesting. It's just, as I say, it's kind of an unassuming book. It's without a dust jacket, uh, gold lettering on the spine. The title is Stirling Castle, Its Place in Scottish History, by Eric Stair-Kerr, M.A., Eden and Oxford, and FSA, Fellow Society of Arts, I assume, Scotland, with an introduction by the Right Honourable Earl of Mar and Kelly, hereditary keeper of Stirling Castle, with a chapter by James S. Richardson, FSA Scotland, HM Inspector of Ancient Monuments on the buildings which have been recently excavated, and an appendix by David B. Morris, Town Clerk of Stirling, on the carved heads which were formerly in the King's Room in Stirling Castle. And the carved heads are odd, like the paneling, but they're sort of are carved heads, if I remember correctly. And there's a nice pull-out map of the castle. There's illustrations, but I guess I'd call them sparse illustrations. They're delicate. I don't know what the correct term would be. They're line drawings, but a lot of them are very, very sparse. They don't do a lot, but they're kind of evocative, even so. There's some that are a little more so. This is, I can't read what it says. Not enough light here. But they're quite nice. And this one I see the old mint. And it just goes through the history of it. And Stirling Castle is quite important in Scotland. It's probably the biggest and possibly oldest castle. I guess was probably a hill fort on the mound. But then around the early 1100s, a castle was probably built. It's been attributed to King Arthur at times, but in modern day, like there's outdoor concerts at the on the grounds, and in the 1970s, the film Colditz TV series, which was a good series, the externals of Colditz Castle was actually Stirling Castle, which is kind of interesting because it does have a look similar to Colditz. But yeah, it's just there's early history in here. It was published by, it was published originally in 1913, and then the second edition 1928, this is the second edition. And the publisher is Enos McKay Stirling. They were a bookseller and publisher in late 1800s and early 20th century. And they might have had about 100 publications. There are a list of some of their publications in the back here, which is always nice when you get in these old books. You get sometimes a little catalog of the publisher. And there's a few things that are interesting, like Scottish Diaries and Memoirs 1550 to 1746. Smuggling in the Highlands, an account of the Highland whiskey smuggling stories and detections. That would be fabulous. There's a lot of stuff on Burns, which is not surprising. Celtic mythology and religion. The romantic story of the Highland garb and tartan. Antiquarian notes, a series of papers regarding families and places in the Highlands. The Priory of Inchcolm, if I'm pronouncing that right. The playground of Mary Queen of Scots. Yeah, there's quite a few books that are listed here. It's just an interesting little book. Things that I sort of like. I do like castles, and when I see things like this in the past, I have picked them up. So that's your book for hours in my library this week. Take care, BookTube.